Oh, I really wish I could say I can't believe I have to talk about this kind of stuff again, but people want to oversimplify things and think that it's one or the other. Here's the thing. This has to do with the fires in California. Respects, uh, thoughts and prayers to those who are badly affected by this god-awful natural event that's been aggravated by human idiocy. So let's start with the first name on the list, the Resnicks. Yes, they own a lot of the water in California. That's kind of blatantly obvious. Even a cursory look at any sources will tell you that, right? Rich people are not usually your friends. They're in it for themselves, and everyone knows that, okay? Uh, if you read this article that... If you read this small paragraph, set of lines, actually, that Wall Street Apes had posted, they own roughly 60%, almost as high as 75% of the water rights in California. They use over 150 billion gallons of water each year, quote unquote. That is not a confirmed number, by the way, that's just an estimate. You can tell by the way the sentence is written. Water used to be considered a public right. That was until 1994 when there was a secret meeting. These two were in attendance and it was divided up in private interest groups before the 1994 secret meeting. They've been paying off Democrats ever since to keep the scam going, and Gavin Newsom is their guy. Okay, so yes, I'm sure that's a factor. And I'm sure there's a lot more to this story than what I'm going to say here. But the stream, is called, and I forgot what I named my own stream. Give me a second. The Resnick, Newsome, Bass, Trump, Tango. How do those four names play in? Well, this is part one of the issue, right? This is one layer of a, 60-layer cake of bad. Okay? You have this. I actually only have two tabs that I have pulled up, but this is another part of it, right? This is Newsom's to his own state, okay? One of his. California also refuses to manage the forest floor under the basically screechings of lobbyist groups that don't want, anything done to the forests because they're anti-logging or whatever, and it's hurting nature, supposedly. Yeah, you know what else hurts nature? Burning the entirety of a forest down to the friggin' dirt. And you know what? I'm sorry, but your defend the trees thing is not as important as saving lives. So go piss up a rope. That's my first thing on that. Now that we're past the Resnicks, we're past Gavin Newsom, we can get into Governor Bass. Sorry, Mayor Bass. My bad, she's not a governor. Thank fucking God. She'd probably be worse than Gavin. Your fire hydrants are empty, but you live off of the ocean. You should be looking at desalinization of some of the ocean waters to be able to fill your reservoirs. This should have been something that you thought of the minute you realized that your reservoirs were empty and there was no water coming out of your hydrants. This should have been phase one, right? But oh no, couldn't be bothered. Couldn't be bothered to look into stuff like that at all. And I'm saving the fish. We'll get to the fish, right? And also, like Gavin Newsom, she refuses to do any sort of underbrush clearing for dead trees and brush, which effectively means that the whole place is basically a tinderbox. Here's a little tip for you from someone who's been dealing with forested lands for pretty much the entire 30-something years he's been alive. You don't want a lot of underbrush. Underbrush is good to a degree, but you don't want too much of it. It kills trees, it becomes flammable, and it causes issues with the forest floor. It does. It really does. In fact, if I were to take you out to this 2-acre piece of land that I'm sitting on and the extra land that my family owns, you will notice that it's very well managed, normally. In fact, we're in the process of having one of the pieces of land cleaned off today, right in the middle of winter, because it could provide to be a safety risk. And that's really where it comes down to. Your lobbyist dollars matter less than the public safety, okay? You can shove your profiteering up your butt because we're tired of sacrificing lives and risking our safety on account of your profits, right? And this is where I would traditionally get blowback from the left. Well, what about gun sales and all this other stuff? Dude, that's a right. Okay, you have a right to bear arms and defend yourself. All right. If people make money on that, then that's kind of a thing. But we're talking about people who are literally, number one, making it nearly impossible for the rest of the state to have enough water to barely sustain itself. And then number two, the other two people responsible for that, or, well, actually probably more than two, it's probably closer to 200, people responsible for managing that are severely mismanaging it at every turn. So, yeah, you've got a problem. It's called corruption. Look into it. Now we get on to Trump. Trump has said basically what I said altogether. Now, Trump made a comment about the base smelt. No one gives a damn about your fish, okay? They care about staying alive and not burning to death in their homes. Stop mismanaging the very limited resources that you have at the expense of your people. This is why people are screaming up and down for your resignations. Both of you. This is directed towards Bass and Newsome. And the resnicks need to be basically BTFO of the whole situation entirely and realize that they're a detriment to their fellow human beings and they're actually costing people lives. Not that they care, but they should. But they don't. We all know they don't. It's kind of just blatantly obvious. Oh, well, we contribute to philanthropies. Yeah. And then you take all the water out of your own state to ensure your own profit margins, and then people die as a result of wildfires. So I don't want to hear it. And newsflash, they contribute to all these lefty Democrat causes at every turn, right? So it just kind of escalates from there. Donald Trump then goes on Joe Rogan, mentions the forest floor, and then mentions the smelt. Now, everyone out there that doesn't like Donald Trump is on this whole, oh, well, he's wrong because it's Donald Trump. Well, I got a newsflash for you. A broken clock's right twice a day, okay? Even if you don't like Trump, this is one of the times he's right. You have massive mismanagement of the limited resources that the state of California is being allowed to use because of rich people that want to basically do corrupt backroom deals. That is actually, I'm pretty sure, illegal in most states. It's called corruption and... what's the word? There is another word for it. See, here's the thing. These interests that did this did not actually have the right to do it. It's a combination of theft of state property and theft of resources, right? And services. That's what this is, okay? These people pay an obscene amount of taxes to the state, which then end up going to people like the resnicks and these other interest groups that control water, of all things. As far as I'm aware... in my state, water is not something that can be owned by any one person. If it were the case, then I would be able to set up a dam and a power generation mill on my own property without having to pay a $5,000 permit to the state. Needless to say, that's not how that happens. I actually have to go through the state, pay for a permit, and all this other stuff to make it happen. Okay? I would be able to say where this water goes and does not go. That's not how the state of Maine works. That's not how most states work. In Arkansas, actually, the waterways belong to the Army Corps of Engineers, of all people. You can't do anything on their waters without their say-so, except for fish and swim and run a boat. And even then, in certain areas, you need their permission to run a boat. So that's another thing, too. Like, I know for a fact it's not like that in most other states. So why is it that way in California and only California? Well, the way I understand it is that these two billionaires are the only reason that these laws did not get put into place to prevent this kind of garbage from happening. which should not be the case, but it is. So I just got done watching Asmongold, and everyone on there was saying, oh, well, it's the left, it's the right, everyone gets their news from right-wing sources, blah, blah, blah. No, this is neither left nor right, this is just outright corrupt practices, and it needs to be addressed. I don't care if they have an R next to their name or a D next to their name, it doesn't matter. They've cost people millions of dollars in property damage. They have cost the deaths of several people between the mismanagement and the government of this state, and these people being allowed to do this kind of garbage. It's just been terrible for California, and it needs to be addressed. California used to be a very beautiful state. When I was a kid in like the early 2000s, before any of this stuff really started to, when it was developing, right, you'd hear stories about how awesome, like, California grapes and wine were, right? Like, it was just this, it was a thing. That was touted around like the campfire stories and stuff, right? And now all you hear about is they're always on fire because of poor forestry management, because, your governor's taking lobbyist money from, green lobby groups that want to sit there and scream up and down anytime you want to remove a dead tree. And then when you go to do it, they commit to terrorist actions, like putting nails in a tree when you need to, cut it down. So when you have to cut it down, it's called spiking a tree. And then whoever's having to cut it up when it's dead on the ground gets hurt because there's a metal spike in it. These people are dangerous, and you're taking money from them. I'm sorry, but you're at that point, it's not lobbying money. You're taking political donations effectively from a domestic terror organization. Sorry, not sorry. That's what it is. So, if you know, you know. That alone should be enough to have you lose your governorship and any sort of mayoral campaign ever. But apparently, Californians are okay to vote for that. Well, I bet you they probably won't be now. I would imagine that this would be enough to wake just about anybody up, but, if it's not, then, well, I guess what they say about horses and water is really true now, isn't it? You can bring a horse to it. Good luck making them drink. But no, it's just, this whole thing is a clusterfuck, and we all know it is, and I will cuss on this particular stream because it is. I will call it what it is. It is another situation just like the George Soros thing, alright? They'll sit there and they'll dump millions and billions of dollars into making themselves look good and do some of the most heinous shit in the background that you've never heard of. And they make sure you don't hear about it either, because if you knew about it, these people would probably, and I hate to say that humanity would devolve back to this point, but these people would probably be executed publicly by their own people. And it is the truth. George Soros contributes largely to campaigns in the United States that are against our country's best interest at every turn, because he doesn't like the United States. He doesn't like the fact that we have a freedom of speech, for example. He thinks that our speech should be regulated. Well, that's not what the Constitution says, and that's not how our country's set up. Stay over on your own side of the friggin' pond, you European fucktard. How about that? And stop trying to dump money into fucking up our country. We don't do it to yours. We do it to other places all the time. And actually, you could probably use some of our intervention right now, given all the bad stuff that's happening over in Europe right now, with all the grooming gangs and whatnot. But now we don't want to lift a finger to help you because you've been a detriment to us at every turn. Shocker. I mean, at this point, we're basically paying in our own blood and mud for your very existence. Kind of tired of doing it, to be honest. You can't even defend one of your own countries in Europe, which is Ukraine. I'm sorry, but not sorry. Just going to call it like it is. And if you keep doing stuff that's just, like, wrong and abhorrent, we're just going to go throw our hands up and say good luck being Russia's new chew toy. Sorry, not sorry again. But you can either act like a modern society, or we'll just throw you to the wolves where you belong. And take whatever good citizens you have left as immigrants and form a new coalition over here on this hemisphere. And I did want to address one more thing in this video. Well, I didn't really want it to be a part of this video, but y'all realize that Trump's saying we should make Canada like the 51st state and take over Greenland. I'm not so sure about the Panama Canal thing. I think that might be legit, but most of what he says is just to get a lot of lefties riled up and to get the media talking about it. So that way they're busy dealing with all this other shit and too busy covering this obscene, the weird, obscure stuff that like no one has mentioned in a long time. He does this stuff for trolling purposes. It's to get the media talking about everything but the stuff at home so that way he can get things done. Like the border wall. They can't really cover the border wall if they're, covering all the other crazy stuff that he posts on Twitter or Truth Social. I mean, come on, let's face the facts here. But, yeah, a lot of calls on Twitter for removing Gavin Newsom, removing any agreement or nullifying any agreement with the Resnicks, removing Bass because she didn't do her job effectively and she knew that they were at a high fire risk and left anyway. And a lot of talk about insurance companies too. Look, the insurance companies left because you had the heightened risk that was only heightened by government mismanagement. And that is the truth, by the way. This all boils down to governmental mismanagement and corruption. If you take that element out of all of this, I guarantee you these fires would not have been anywhere near as bad as they were. Would they probably still have happened? Oh, most likely, yes. But it would have equated to, it would have been the equivalent of someone's house catching on fire compared to basically a nature-based napalm strike on your city. That's just the truth, and I can see that I'm getting kind of throttled here because people don't like what I'm saying, but it is the truth, and I will speak the truth to this matter. If you remove Gavin Newsom and all the corrupt hands that be, and you put in people that have no connection with the people that are causing the problems, you're going to remove most of the problem. Not all of it, but a decent portion of it. If you get into the weeds, I'm sure you'll see that there's also some overlap between the green groups that have been giving you guys shit for for trying to manage your forest floor and, buying off your politicians by saying, oh, here's a certain amount of, donor dollars for for your silence on this matter and just letting the forest floor overgrow and cause issue. Pretty sure that a lot of that money's coming from the same place if you actually did some digging. I'm not going to say where. I'll let you figure it out. I'm just going to say follow the money. People like this are not... They're clever, but they're not genius level clever, okay? They are doing this stuff. There is a paper trail, and you most likely will find it if you look hard enough. It probably won't even take that much looking. You will probably see a lot of very common names involved in this situation on these donor bills, and some of them might be bigger than others. So, just as a heads up. And the whole thing with the smelt, the whole thing with the fish. So Donald Trump tries his best to be a big picture person. It's how he's gotten as far as he has. And whether you like it or not, he actually has gotten quite far. The problem is that this picture is bigger than Donald Trump was willing to talk about at that time, probably for legal purposes, if I had to guess. But there is one big federal fix to this. It's simple. It is very simple. We pass a federal law that makes it impossible for private individuals without the okay of the state government, meaning a vote passed in the legislature and approval from certain like EPA or whatever, to make this kind of shenanigans impossible. I mean, the more oversight you have, the better. In fact, you could also assign a private oversight committee of civilians. That would be a good way to deal with it. I mean, duh, right? But also, fuck your fish. Like, if that's the water that you have to work with it. No one gives a damn about your fucking your green whatever bullshit. If it comes down to saving lives, that stuff needs to be separate. Look, it's the Maslow's hierarchy of needs again, right? Like you have your basic needs, your fire, shelter, warmth, and water, and then you have the next step up from that, then you have the next step up from that. Well, this stuff falls down around the basic needs stuff. You're talking about safety here, which is like the next step up from the most important, and then you've got your social needs. So you're sitting here complaining about a fish, which is, by the way, under the list of needs, is a social need, is not a safety need, because we don't actually need that fish to survive as a species. As a human race, we do not need that fish. We have plenty of other resources to get smelt. Maine, we have smelt in all of our lakes, well, a decent number of them, and we have access to smelt off of, right on our shores. I'm sure if you looked in more places, you'd find fish of a very similar nature. And you know what? If I have to weigh the life of, a couple million smelt versus, like, 2 people, yeah, I'm saving the 2 people and fuck your smelt. Right? Like, that's kind of just, like, blatantly obvious. It shouldn't be a debate. In fact, it's not a debate. It is blatantly obvious. Screw your fish, screw your trees. We're tired of watching people die because of your stupidity. I'm pretty sure that's a pretty common sentiment right now. Where a decent number of people, including people that I don't know personally, but actually do kind of care for, have been hurt or burdened by this situation. And who knows? We don't even have a casualty count, as far as I'm aware, that actually amounts to how many people actually passed away at this event. So yeah, every single person involved in this needs to be hammered hard. But I'm not going to play the video, but I will kind of read. Actually, it's 1 minute and 13 seconds. I don't know who this guy is on TikTok, but he'll probably have his... Yeah, there it is. Oh, I can't actually say that, but yeah. Let me get the audio capture set up right, because I don't think I have it. No, that's still set up for Pal World. Alright, this should be set up. We'll just listen and I'll speak afterwards.
Over 60% of California's water rights. They made their massive fortune in agriculture. Their business, the Wonderful Company, produces pomegranate juice and most famously pistachios, and they use over 150 billion gallons of water every year. Water used to be considered a public right. That was until 1994 when there was a secret meeting. These two were in attendance, and it was divided up by private interest groups. Before the 1994 secret meeting, water used to go to the citizens first, but that all changed and now it goes to agriculture needs. And with the resnicks being the largest farmers in California, guess who gets the most water? What makes it even worse is that they sell water back to the county, but it's considered paper water. So most of the time, the amount of water that they buy is not even the amount of water that's actually on hand.
So that right there is another form of corruption. If you do not have the resource, you should not be able to sell it to anyone, period. That's fraud. It's not paper water, it's outright fraud. So that's illegal in and of itself. Moving on. I am actively muting my as we do this because I don't want the echo, but I need to hear what this person is saying.
This has been a problem for the state for years, but there's been little to do anything to change it. We should boycott the Wonderful Company, not only for the destruction that they're causing in California, the destruction they cause abroad.
Okay, so I would like to actually know about the destruction they're causing abroad. I would be very interested to know that. Yep, follow the money. Follow the money. Yep. Yep. These are just some of the contents. Um, uh-huh. And that, and that really just kind of plays into it, right? Like, you have all of these issues that lead to this perfect firestorm of what the fuck. Um, you have mismanagement by local and state officials as well as county officials. A governor who cares so much as literally to get on TV and say the locals will figure it out, right? Um, like totally just a callous ass. A coward who can't stand up to the fact that, this is an issue that he is responsible for. As the governor, the buck stops with him. The dead bodies are literally at his feet. You know? And then you have the California fire prevention budget, which was more focused on DEI initiatives than it was on firefighter training. There are videos of people putting out fires with handbags and purses. Like, are you serious? What is this? This is dumb. And yes, I will be boycotting these people. And you know what? This picture encapsulates the LA Fire Department leadership right now entirely. I'm not saying the people at the ground level, but definitely the leadership. And the Resnicks were a top donor opposing Newsom's fucking recall effort. If we had Larry Elder in there, the basic needs would have been covered at least. At least that, even if you don't agree with his politics. Like, that's another thing about this. Like, people just... I hate people like this. I really can't stand it. The race of the person doing these bad things is not, at issue here. It's the bad thing that they're doing that needs to be stopped. And if there's more evidence to support a wider conspiracy, then deal with that later. Right now, we have more urgent issues on the horizon. I just... Not only do I think their resources need to be boycotted, I think everyone that works for them needs to quit and go find a new job. Like, instantly. Completely just stop having any involvement with the Resnicks. You want to know how to stop people like this? No involvement is a good way to do it. Again, with the whole, going after people because of their heritage, like that somehow matters. I really get tired of that. That is so stupid. Like, yeah. I want to see the actual, like, I want a community note either confirming or denying this. I want that, and I want to actually go look it up in an encyclopedia before I confirm or deny any of it. This video is an 8-minute video covering all of this, by the way, and I do highly recommend people go watch it. I'm not really a big fan of the people who do it. The more perfect union people tend to get some things wrong, and a lot of information is kind of jumbled up. Like, they seem like they wanted to go against the right with it, but they definitely went against the left with it. It's kind of like they tried to walk the middle but didn't know how, which is fine. I don't really care. I care about the information getting out there, right? But no, these people are terrible. Like, what are we even doing here? How are we allowing this? Like, we have a federal and state governments to prevent this kind of thing, and no one's doing anything because these people are just dumping money in the right coffers, and that needs to be addressed. Absolutely needs to be addressed. We need uncorruptible civilian oversight committees to cover stuff like this and actively bring this to representatives, doorsteps for the Senate and the House of Representatives. And yet, no one's doing that. No one's doing that, because every time they do, they get, rousted by just about anyone who can. That's taking money from, again, these same people. And by the way, the resnicks in this situation they are a problem, but they're not, they're a symbol of the overlying problem that we keep running into, which, by the way, is not unique to capitalist society or communistic society or socialism or any of that stuff. It's kind of a universal thing that happens everywhere. And it does happen in communism, too. That's where the phrase oligarchs come from. It's the same people. It's the same, not the same race of people, but it's the same power corruption dynamic that's everywhere. The phrase power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely is like a universal truth, and yet every time, someone looks the other way, then someone else gets the power, and then all of a sudden you have more corruption. Shocker, shocker. And then we all sit here in horror as people die because of corruption, and it's like, but you voted for it, and even when you could have voted against it, the people that you voted for voted against your best interests, so, like, what do you do? Or in the case of socialism, it's the same thing. You may have put them in power, but the first thing they do is against your best interests of survival, so what do you do? And I'm not saying this to advocate for, what's on the shirt, but like, and there really is no real reason to call for that kind of thing. There's a lot of legal avenues that haven't been taken that should have been, and they just aren't. Like, there are very good legal ways to deal with these situations that are not being pursued because, they're afraid that the other people have, the rich people have all the power. Well, here's a fun fact. Bribing a judge is illegal. And the fact that this arrangement is what has led to the death of people and more property damage than I care to account for, I'm just saying there's only so much a judge can be bribed without it becoming obvious. Okay? And when that happens, you pursue the avenues to have that judge shut down completely. Disbarment, removal from the bench, and the whole 9 yards. Maybe even prison time. Okay? Like, the thing about it is capitalism is great and works. Communism doesn't work and usually leads to mass deaths. But there's one benefit that standing together has in both systems. You can affect change if there's enough of you willing to do it. If at this point, at this point in time, it doesn't have to be a violent riot or a protest. You have enough legal minds in the state of California to where you can take this to the Supreme Court if you chose to. And you could have this whole deal completely invalidated, I'm sure. It is a predatory contract that has led to the death of people and mass-scale property damage. It is therefore, in the eyes of the law, going to most likely end up being an invalid agreement. I can just about guarantee it. Look up predatory contract practices. I guarantee you it's gone. I can guarantee you if you send a lawyer who has a half a brain on predatory contracts, this whole water arrangement thing, yeah, that sails right out the window just about the second it hits courtroom. And you'll just have to appeal it all the way to the Supreme Court. And by the way, if you're a lawyer and you're watching this, you need to consider what's good for your state, what's good for your people in your state, and you need to act on it. And then once that contract is gone, once that's been officially declared not official and predatory, then you can proceed to go after anyone who is involved with that contract. That's your governor, who's received donations from these people and probably even directions to do certain things that I'm not going to get into detail on. That's the mayor, who was out on a fancy vacation, kind of nice for a kind of interesting on going to Africa on a mayoral salary. How does a public servant afford foreign vacations to foreign countries? I'd like to know the answer to that. That would be a very interesting question to ask. I'd also like to know about how Gavin Newsom was able to afford a that expensive ass house that he just bought. Because I seriously doubt it came off of a governor's salary, and if it is, y'all really need to start renegotiating your power dynamic with your governor and your legislature, because something ain't right. I am not saying corruption, but there are signs of things, we'll put it that way. And y'all just keep voting for these people because they're not the other side, and it's like, yeah, but you're also voting against your own self-interests, so, you need to start voting with your own self-interests in mind. Stop voting where the donor dollars tell you to vote. Stop doing that. Start voting with, what keeps your house from burning to the ground and what keeps your neighbor from being burned alive. That's where you need to start voting. And by the way, this should not stop with Gavin Newsom. Anyone involved with this needs to be absolutely taken to the mat for it. 100%. But no one in California will do it. You ain't got the testicular fortitude to do it, apparently. Because these forest fires, they've been happening for a long time. You didn't have a problem with it because it didn't hit your backyard. Well, now it's officially hit your backyard. So I guess the question is, what are you going to do about it? Your state government's mismanagement and corruption has led to insurance companies not wanting to cover anything in your state because they wanted to charge the insurance companies through the fucking nose just to operate in your state, which would inevitably just drive up the cost of premiums and therefore hurt your ability to get insurance. So, I mean, yeah, that's another consideration too. When you couple that fact with the higher risk of being where you're at because of the lack of forest management and poor water management in your state, guess what? If I'm an insurance company that's offering fire insurance and I'm looking at the tinderbox that is that certain part of California, I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, no, maybe not. We don't need to operate in California, and we just don't need to do business in California, and they'll just walk off. And realistically, there's nothing California can do about it. They could sit there and say, oh, well, we'll press charges. Do what you want, they just won't go back to California. California is not this highly respected state anymore. Y'all look like, for the last year, actually longer than the last year, for the last almost 10 years or longer, y'all have become some ghetto slimeball fucking city where only rich people and homeless people live. Which is a weird dynamic. You would think that where there are homeless people, there wouldn't be rich people, or it would balance out, but it never did. It's kind of like trying to make that weird dressing, but you wanted to mix the water and the oil together, and it didn't work. That's this part of California, and, heaven help me for saying this, but y'all could have done something about it years ago and haven't. And every time you've tried to, enough people have been basically brainwashed by the donor dollars to counter what you guys want to get done. Again, they try to force people or get enough uneducated people to vote against your self-interests as a civilian populace. And then this is what you get. You get an agreement from 1994 that was probably never validated to begin with through the state, never seen the light of the legislature from day one, and have never done anything about it, and now it's a problem about 20, 30 years later. This is that short-term extraction for long-term pain thing that Republicans have been warning you about for generations. You keep voting for the short-term gains and long-term pain, and guess what? That long-term pain is going to catch up with you. Oh, we'll just deal with it when it comes around. Yeah, well, now people are dead. So I'm sorry. I do feel bad. It sucks. It's terrible, but y'all need to stop voting against your self-preservation and self-interest in the name of some idiotic ideology. If you have a problem with, your house is burning down, you need to stop voting for, preservation of the forest and start voting for conservation of the forests, which includes forest floor management. You need to start voting for better water management. You need to stop voting for DEI practices and start voting for more firefighter training, more and better police training, more and better medical training. Stop being afraid of every little virus that comes out of somewhere and start investing in the technology and sciences like Berkeley instead of investigating, what color, skin color, or gender each virus, tags more bodies in, and start looking at how can we stop the virus entirely. Stop looking at these small granular things and go tag the bigger issue and put a body tag on it and end it. You have the ability to do it. You're one of the highest taxed economies in the world. Your state, instead of letting the money go into your state representatives' pockets and your governor's pockets, and obviously the rich billionaires' pockets in the case of the resnicks, and all these special interest groups, instead of letting it go there, it needs to be funneled back into the state, which is what it should be. And if it's not, then it's corruption. I'm sorry that this pisses people off in the legalistic department, but hey, if it walks like a duck, smells like a duck, and quacks like a duck, it's probably a friggin' duck. Okay? Stop with this, oh, well, it's not, I don't care. It is. It is corruption, and it needs to be dealt with. Okay? Otherwise, you're just not going to have a state left. One of these years, if this keeps going the way that it is, the entirety of the state, with the exception of the Resnick farm, is going to be dead wood, or dead trees on the ground, and have no water in them, and it's going to be a tinderbox. And then it's going to be a corpse-filled desert. I hate to be the one to say that, but it's the truth. Okay? And the more people keep voting along this way, it might take 20, 30 years to get that far, but it will. Okay? And then when, the rest of the world is sitting there wondering why nothing got done about it, well, there were people out here saying, you need to have proper management of your forests and water, or this is what can happen. We're going to sit back and say, gee, I'm sorry for your loss, but about 20, 30 years ago, we told you so. And boy, is that going to make you mad. You think being wrong now is going to make you mad? Picture, if you will, your favorite sci-fi disaster movie. A giant fire tornado ripping through California. 90 to 100 mile an hour hurricane force winds, just fueling this inferno with enough oxygen to go for days. And it's just attacking California because the other surrounding states have good water management and their forest floors are dealt with. Or they're just a desert anyway, and, what's it going to do? Burn 150 miles worth of, sand? Those that can't evacuate will. Sure. But they'll probably be evacuating on foot given all the traffic jams. The ones that can afford to take an air flight out probably won't be able to if it's a big enough fire. If you get enough ash in those engines, it don't matter how good they are, you're not going to have an engine. You won't have any water to fight it because, the little bit of water that was given to you by the resnicks, the people that, you let do this stuff to you and proceeded to try to fight against it and then just didn't try hard enough or get enough legal power behind you, or didn't have a lawyer that was willing to step up to bat for this situation and actually say, no, this is a predatory contract, it's null and void, and take that to court. Well, then it's just going to fall to you. It's at your feet. It's at your doorstep, really. You've had several opportunities to remove your governor. You've voted against your own self-interest by voting for people who don't care about your self-interest. They care about their own profits. And then try to argue otherwise by saying we donate blah, blah, blah to all these foreign charities and all these other philanthropies. And that, by the way, that rings as hollow as beating on an empty oil drum. Okay, that's meaningless. That's just a lot of noise. That's all that is. You know what? A lot of really bad people donate to really good causes to try to ease their own personal guilt but it's more or less to shield themselves from criticism, and that's all that it's worth. It's not worth a damn thing. I donate to cancer causes, but you know what? Up until the last like 2 years, I smoked like a chimney. Cancer's killed several members of my family, and I still smoked like a chimney. I quit because, it took me a little bit to put my priorities right, basically. But when I finally did, I quit smoking, which is why I'm an advocate for people to quit smoking. I smoked a cigar when the Republicans won as more of a sarcastic being a jerk thing, but like I didn't actually inhale that one. That was just a flavor tasting kind of thing. Which, by the way, while for a cigar it wasn't bad, I'm going to suggest that no one does that. Cigars are just not for me. Hey, four-legged fluff machine, stop doing that. That's gross. Um, yeah. No, it's just this whole situation sucks. But at the same token, this has been going on since 1994. It's 2025. Okay, you're talking about, what is that? 31 years in the making, effectively. Y'all had plenty of time to deal with it and never did. I'd kind of like to get Arnold Schwarzenegger on the phone or something and ask him when he was governor how well he maintained the forest floors and what may have prevented him from doing so. And the water management issues that he had. If they were anywhere near this. I'd kind of like to know that myself. See, this is really the problem that a lot of you Democrat types have with Donald Trump. Donald Trump has his own money. He doesn't give two licks about lobbyist money. He's going to do what he wants when he wants. He's the perfect hand grenade. You're not going to be able to buy him off. So you try to enslave him legally by doing all this lawfare stuff that failed and is in the process of currently failing even more spectacularly, which is kind of hilarious to watch, but I kind of feel for the guy at this point because there's never been another president in the history of the U.S. that's been treated as poorly as Donald Trump, actually. I think the last person who was probably, Richard Nixon? Maybe Ronald Reagan? Obama never got treated anywhere near half as bad, and yet they're still sitting there at the Carter funeral, laughing and making jokes with each other, the both of them. That raises definitely a certain level of eyebrow raise. I would say that it raises to the level of The Rock, but I'm not even sure The Rock can raise his eyebrow that much. It definitely makes the point that, this is the thing that people don't understand, right? The far left and the far right, they don't see the big picture. This is literally a situation of another day at the office for these people, right? Donald Trump says that he wants to do X, Y, and Z that's good for the country. Sure, okay, I'll vote for you, right? But at the end of the day, I'm gonna be blunt. That's just work politics and work talk. They're still gonna be nice and kind to each other outside of work because, hey, work is work. When work is done, what do you have left? And really, anyone who has held a job in the past knows this dynamic. They understand it well. It is a situation of, it's a situation of knowing. Do not. Okay. I'm going to fault this user, and I'm going to call them out on it. Do not post this stuff. Do not post stuff like this on anywhere. I'm telling you right now. If you know the anime this stuff is from, this is effectively a death threat. You can't do stuff like that. Whoa, what? I want to know more about whether that's real or not. Uh-huh. Oh, well, that's the way it's looking. Oh, here we go. We don't just have a concerned citizen posting stuff on Twitter at this point. We got actual articles. Okay. The first one was just telling us who these people are, right? The California government provided about $74 million in public funds to help Stuart Resnick acquire a water bank, which allowed him to plant millions of trees on his farm. The water bank is an underground lake in San Joaquin Valley. Resnick and his wife, Linda, I'm probably going to screw up some of the basic names here because I'm getting a weird allergic reaction in my eye. Which I probably just aggravated by doing that. Don't ever do what I'm doing right now. Don't do as I do on this one. It's making it hard to see. Resnick and his wife Linda are also the recipients of a $50 million gift from UC Davis to establish the Linda and Stuart Resnick Center of Agricultural Innovation. $10 million of the gift will be used for annual research grants that focus on identifying value-added properties in the Resnick's pistachio, almond, and pomegranate crops. So effectively, they made money, or they had money to begin with, and they're preserving their wealth off of basically killing the rest of their state. $250,000 to Newsom's campaign against recall. Yeah, see, this is just kind of proof is in the pudding, right? They donated $250,000 to Gavin Newsom to effectively try to keep him from being recalled. Yep. All the more reason to get him out. Get him out of there. I don't care about their race. I care about the problems that they're causing. Stop trying to make it about race, guys. That's just disgusting behavior. I don't really give a damn if you see it as a race thing. That's a you problem, not a me problem. This is not a democracy, capitalism, socialism, or nationalism issue. It is directly a public corruption issue. And by the way, you'll find this exact same corruption in socialism and nationalism and democracy and capitalism and in republics. It's just corruption. You'll find it everywhere. People who write stuff like this have no idea what they're actually talking about. They're just blowing stuff out of their ass because they want to make, clicks, basically. Which I know. You're on YouTube. You're doing the same thing. No shit. I've seen this several times, but until I actually look it up in an actual Jewish name encyclopedia, I'm not going to take it at its face value. So, yeah, I mean, of course they're just going to call these people out at every turn because they've effectively what's happened is because they are kind of the face of the problem. The owners of Fiji Water and the Kern Water Bank, and one of the largest water storage facilities in California. According to this, during the 2011 to 2017 California drought, also called the Great Drought, Resnick Paramount Farms, which is one of the wonderful companies, Wonderful company drilled 21 new wells in 2015 alone. Resnick is the wealthiest farmer in the United States and with a net worth. I don't really care about that. I want to get to the issues. The Kern Water Bank, though privately owned, profits from water sales through publicly funded water transportation systems. The acquisition continuing private ownership. The water sales profit from this taxpayer developed resource infrastructure while California suffers under drought is controversial. I mean, I think it'd be kind of obvious at this point that, it's a problem. They posted this from, I guess, yeah. This was posted from Wikipedia, so I don't know. I don't know if I would really trust that. And oh, by the way, these people also did donate to the Ukraine war efforts. So, I mean, that's kind of an eye roll, whatever. We all know. People with money do stupid things with money, and it's not the stupid stuff that we're really worried about. What's really annoying is really just how Californians vote is the most annoying part of all of this. Like, you literally vote against the thing that's keeping you alive, which is good water management, good forestry floor management, And oh, by the way, before you say, oh yeah, but it's the billionaire, yeah, but every chance you've had, you still have a chance to fix most of this, right? Like, if enough of you actually got off your duff, stop voting for people who don't care about your basic needs, and realize that you're a person and that you're going to vote for them if they do good, These are all important points that you just seem to completely just whiz right by your head. I'm not saying you have to vote Republican, just vote for Democrats that are campaigning on, yeah, we're going to get our water rights back. We're going to, all this stuff where we have no forestry management. Vote for those people. Vote for the people who are going to fight for better forestry management, better land resource management, cleaning up your cities. These are the votes that matter. You keep voting for these people who are like, oh, but we need to be so kind and so nice to people. The politics of nice are the politics of death. You vote for someone who wants to be nice. They will be nice at your expense, not their own. Remember that. But we're going to leave it there. I'm not going to drag this on for more than an hour. I just kind of wanted to give my 2 cents on the matter. It is a multi-layer issue. It is a multi-layer cake of bad. And Donald Trump is not actually at fault on this one. Now, that being said, one of the first things that Republicans and Donald Trump could look at is how public water is used. And what constitutes public water and what doesn't. But we're going to leave it there. If you like the content, hit the like and subscribe button. Vote better and live a better life. Peace.